This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, so this is the final stretch, the closing moments of hopefully the last Tisha B'Av. We have very little information in the corpus of Jewish literature written by Gedolei Yisrael regarding philosophical issues on the Holocaust. This is a subject that we have very little information on. Not so many Gedolei Yisrael venture to write about the subject. There's a book by Rav Avigdor Miller in English, and he never published it. He published it posthumously. I always heard him speak about it, but he never published it. So we have very little published material from Gedolei Yisrael about this period in history. But what we're about to look at this evening, we're not going to be able to go through everything, is what is called a rare genre of Jewish thought, philosophical ideas about the Holocaust, and this was written by a very interesting personality. There's very little information about this personality. Somewhat of a mysterious figure. He is the father of the current Munkatcher Rebbe. And his name was Baruch Yehoshua Rabinowitz. And he was the Munkatcher Rebbe after the Minchas Elazar. He was the son-in-law of the Minchas Elazar. You ever see those video clips of the famous wedding in Munkatcher? That was him. That was Baruch Yehoshua Rabinowitz marrying the daughter of the Munkatcher. And he was a very close student of the Munkatcher. He was born in Poland in 1914. And very interestingly, he died in Petach Tikva in 1999. He was related to the Yid of Peshischa. He's related to the Bnei Yissaschar. He married the daughter of the Minchas Elazar. And in 1937, he took over Munkatcher. So think about where he is. He's in 1937 in Hungary. And at that point in history, many Jews from all over Europe, from Poland, from Galicia, they fled to Hungary. Many Rebbes fled there, including the Admiral of Belz and Babov. And Rav Baruch Yehoshua Rabinowitz lived a very interesting and somewhat mysterious life. Because ultimately he gave up the Chasidus. He gave it up. It was his. He was the Rebbe of Munkatcher. And this part of his life is not well documented. He came to Israel and he gave up the Rebbe'shaft. There are not too many people in history who, after being Rebbe, gave it up. In fact, I'm not aware of anybody. He took up a job as a rabbi in Brazil. He later came back to Eretz Yisrael. He served as the rabbi of Cholon, and then a community rabbi in Petach Tikva. But Munkatcher gave over the Chasidus to his son, who's the current Rebbe. And we will leave his personal history at that. But he did write a sefer that I have up front. It's called Binas Nevoichem, a very deep philosophical work about what he thought about the Holocaust, and really some astounding ideas and thoughts. So let's try to go through some of it. First, to get the hashkafa, and also to get a sense of what it was like for someone to survive the Holocaust and in the aftermath of the Holocaust. Remember, my grandmother wrote that when she came to Pittsburgh, talking 1951, so many survivors came to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was a big destination. And, the Americans wanted to help. What could they do to help? Financial help. But what nobody understood is this is beyond financial help. They talk about post-traumatic syndrome when a kid hears about a suicide bomb, they already send in the psychologists to try to help them cope with. They didn't go through anything. They they had a steak for dinner the night before, and they were roasting marshmallows, and then they came to school, and some kid told them, oh, they have, what is it called, PTSD? So you can imagine what these survivors needed for their entire life. So in Parak Aleph, Rabinowitz writes as follows: I come to thank Hashem for His chesed that He left me alive, one of the few, from 600 myriads who were gathered in God's cloak. Baruch v'rishayna, my first obligation, my first obligation to God is to thank Him that He gave me the merit, yachad im rabim me'amoni Yisrael, together with a multitude of Jews, that lihishayar shalem be'amunasi v'dveikusi b'elkei Yisrael, that I emerged without any questions in my faith to God. Not many people could have said that. Not only that, says Rav Rabinowitz, b'chalayama neram sha'avru aleinu lo'ba alai af l'rega hamachshava sheki'ilu husra min hashgachas habari. In all of those terrible, torturous days, it never entered my mind one time to question that maybe God removed His protection from me and His hashgacha from me. Sheki'ilu hufkarnu chas v'shalom al yadai. I never entertained the thought that maybe God was mafkir me, despite the great concealment of God's face. Meaning, never did it enter my mind, never did I wake up in the morning and say, you know what? Maybe God took off this year, and He's not being mashgiach olai. And despite the fact, despite the fact that we cried out and we weren't answered, and despite the fact that every tefillah we offered was returned empty-handed and was ineffective, I was always surrounded by a feeling of closeness to God. Now he analyzes this philosophically. Why did I feel connected to God? Is it because I had trust in God that He was going to save me? Absolutely not. I had no trust in God that He would save me. My cleaving to God did not emanate because I had trust in Him. I didn't trust that He would save me, and He's going to explain why. It's not because I hoped. I had hope, things will turn out well. I had no hope things would turn out well. So he's saying I never had some kind of false delusion that I would be saved or God would help me. No. Why in the world would I hope that God would save me? Why should I hope God would save me? He didn't save Rabbi Chanan. He didn't save the Rabbi Nachum Zemba. He didn't save thousands of Gedolim. So why should I think He would save me? I did not hope. I had no hope God would save me. When much greater than me, that relative to them I'm negligible. I'm not even like the shell of garlic. I would not even be worthy of applying for the position to be a granule of dust under one of their shoes. In other words, if one of these great rabbis would put up position available, you could vie to be a granule of dust under my feet, says Rabbi Rabinowitz, I couldn't even apply. All of these Gedolim gathered, destroyed, with terrible, cruel deaths. Even in a nightmare you couldn't conjure up such a death. And these Gedolim died this way. So I would never be so foolish to think that my merit would stand up when theirs didn't. So you say, well, maybe I could hope that God would save me in the merit of my forefathers. Says Rabbi Rabinowitz, what would that do? my brother and sister had the same zechus avos that I did, I think. And the zechus avos didn't help them. So why would I have the delusion? I can't rely on the merit of my forefathers. We had the same father and mother, and the zechus avos did not help. And certainly I had no faith in my own zechus. So I think he has the courage to articulate something that probably nobody else would ever say. And that is, he wants to thank God that he did not lose faith in God. He wants to thank God that he never entertained questions that God forsook him, or was mafkir him, or gave up on being mashgiach over him. But says Rabinowitz, again, this is the son-in-law of the Munkatcher Rebbe, the father of the current Rebbe of Munkatcher. He says, my clinging to God did not emanate from trust in God, and nor did it emanate from a hope that God would save me. I'd had no trust that God would save me, and I did not hope that God would save me. But rather, he expresses the following simple and very profound idea. HaMekar ledveikus amuna b'Hashem, the wellspring of my clinging and my trust in God came from one source. The fact that I accepted the decree of God, and I was primed and ready to give up my life al Kiddush Hashem. I didn't trust God would save me, and I didn't hope that God would save me. My clinging to God emanated from the following feeling, that in my heart of heart, I accepted that this is the will of God, and that called upon, I would be glad to give up my life al Kiddush Hashem, and that is what gave me 6 years worth of deveikus to the Boirei Olam. It wasn't bitachon, and it wasn't yearning for a sense of hope. And now, Rabinowitz says, what is the basis for such a feeling and attachment to God? Amdu lefanai divrei Eiv. The words of Eiv always stand before me. Hein yiktilani loy ayachel. Though he kills me, to him, literally I hope. Which we would think, or possibly translate this, that although God is about to kill a person, I still hope to him at that moment. That, in other words, even when the sword is on the neck, do not refrain from hoping for God's mercy. That is how we would translate that pasuk. Hein yiktalani, even when God kills me, loy ayachel, I hope, you never know, even in the final second, though there's a ray of hope, maybe God would save me. However, says Rav Rabinowitz, this is not the meaning of the pasuk in Eiv. Hein yiktalani loy ayachel, shalafi Rashi, according to Rashi, hakavana, hein vada yiktalani, not he will probably kill me, even when he is killing me. Afal pikein eini nifrad mimenu. I do not separate from him. It doesn't mean even though it looks like he's going to kill me, nevertheless I hope he'll save me. It means even when God is killing me, I am still clinging to him. Eiv didn't hope he wouldn't be killed. Eiv did not have false hope he wouldn't die. Adarabba, he asked to die. Eiv asked God to take his soul. Kol tikvasai, ha'ysolamos, his hope was to die. Sharei bikesh es nafshay lekach, he requested that God take his soul. And Eiv says in Parak Ches, mi yitein tavoi she'elasi v'sikvasi yitein, eloika v'yoyel eloika v'yidkaini, God, yidkaini, Rashi says, yemiseini. Eiv lo'haga tikvas l'chaim, Eiv did not entertain hope to live. And therefore, the only way to translate the pasuk, Hein yiktalani loy ayachel, it doesn't mean, though it looks like God is killing me, I hope that he'll save me. No, it means, even though he certainly is killing me, Elav es chabar, I cling and attach myself to God. Ayachel does not mean tichla, hope. It means A lashon of ein iser chal al iser. Chal means to attach to devolve upon. If you didn't learn anything today, at least you're going to learn the following English word. Devolve. It's the only way to translate to chal, to fall upon. When a concept or idea connects to a tangible entity, in English it's called to devolve upon. Okay, but that has nothing to do with anything. But what does ayachel mean? Ayachel means I cling to him. Though God kills me, I don't stop clinging to him. Elav eschaber hamila ayachel shebapasuk zeh ein perusha lekavois. It doesn't mean to hope. Ela keperush Rashi. Rather, it means, as Rashi says, milashon chalois shehi milashon hitstarfus behislavos, combining and joining. Where else do we find this expression? We find it in a psikta. V'china tamoitze yachel milashon hitstarfus bepsikta rabos in Parshas Acharei Mos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Avdi zeh, this servant of mine, Eov, arba midos gedolos yeshbai. He has 4 great qualities. Ishtam, he is wholesome. V'yashar, he's straight. Yirei Elokim, he fears God. V'sur meira. Im oimed bohem, if he withstands the test. V'loi koirei tigar, and he doesn't complain. Miyachel ani shmi alav. I will devolve my name upon him. God doesn't mean I will yearn my name or hope my name on him. It means I will devolve my name upon him. Kishem sheyichalti ala avos, the same way God rested on the avos. So this is really a revolutionary concept and a historic concept. That Jews who were in the worst places, they didn't trust that God would save them. They didn't hope that God would save them. Although my grandfather said that every day he was in Dachau, he thought Mashiach was going to come. So I guess there is such a idea. Yes, you do hope. You are yearning for God to save you. But that is not what Rav Rabinowitz says he felt. He didn't think God would save him. He didn't trust God would save him. He clung to God. Despite the fact he felt and he knew God was taking his life, he still clung to him. Let's take this now to the last paragraph of Parak Aleph, page Chaf Beis. V'ayin sham b'masechta soita b'hemshech l'divrei HaMishnah Hanal Tanya Rameir Oimer Nemar Yirei Elokim b'Eov, and it says Yirei Elokim b'Avram. Just like when it says Yirei Elokim by Abraham, it means he loved God. So too when it says Yirei Elokim by Eov, it means he loved God. Tosfos says, Gadol ha'oisa me'ahava. Tosfos quotes the Yerushalmi that Rabbi Akiva was being judged by Tornas Rufus Harasha, and the Zman Kriya Shema came. By the way, does anybody know what day of the year did Rabbi Akiva die? Yom Kippur. Now we always imagine that Rabbi Akiva, we know he died in the Zman Kriya Shema, so we tend to think he died in the Zman Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. However, Chazal tell us that the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, after Rabbi Akiva died, was traveling all that night. So clearly Rabbi Akiva died Bizman Kriya Shema Shel Arvis. So it was Yom Kippur at night. So some suggest that the reason why we say Or, Zarua, La Tzadik, Uli Yishrei, Leiv Simcha, which is Soifei Tevais, Rabbi Akiva, is this is a secret hesped for Rabbi Akiva. Anyway, Amar Lai Tornas Rufus, Saba Saba. Tornas Rufus said to Rabbi Akiva, Old man! Do you not know what's happening? Either you're a fool, or you're ignoring it. I'm not stupid. I am not rebelling in my affliction. Every day I would read this pasuk, Ahavtiv b'chol libi, I would love God with all my heart. Ahavtiv b'chol nafshi, I would love God with all my soul. Ahavtiv b'chol mamayni, I would love God with all my money. Avaloi nisnasesi b'kach b'chayal. I was never tested in reality. What's the lashon of the Bavli? Kol yomai atztar al mikra zeh v'achshav shabos liyadi lo yakaymena. So I'm going to tell you a chiddush nifla. It was worth coming down to this world just to hear this. In the Shas Tshuvas Munkatcher Hashem of Reb Tzvi Hirsch Meisels, I just discovered he's buried right here in New Jersey, in Deals, New Jersey. That's my next destination. Deal, New Jersey. Deal Cemetery, excuse me. Or something like that. Reb Tzvi Hirsch Meisels, the Weitzer Rav. He was a Rav later, a survivor of the Holocaust, and a rabbi in Chicago, and he's buried in New Jersey. He wrote a 2-volume set called Shal Tshuvas Munkatcher Hashem. And he wonders, what did Rabbi Akiva mean? Kol Yomai Etztayer Al Mikra Zeh, my whole life, I was in pain over this pasuk. What in the world did Rabbi Akiva mean? My whole life I was in pain over this pasuk. Why would he be in pain over this pasuk? Is it correct for somebody to want to die? What does Rabbi Akiva mean? My whole life I was in pain over this pasuk, and now that it came to me, I shouldn't fulfill it. So Shal Tshuvas Munkatcher Hashem quotes a Rashba, we've quoted it many times, it's brought in the Mechaber. That we know we're supposed to say Shema, Be'ema, Be'yira, Be'reses, U'bezeya, with fear, with dread, with trembling, and with sweat. Now sweat is very easy. They set the thermostat here to 71 degrees instead of 68, so you could always sweat during Kriya Shema over here. Especially with the mask on. With the mask, you're up to 82. You could be Mekayim Be'reses U'vezeya, no problem. But really, what does the Shulchan Aruch mean you should say Shema by sweating? Why should you sweat when you say Shema? What are you sweating about? What are you getting so worked up about? So the Rashba writes in a tshuva, and Mechaber brings it lahalacha, that on the pasuk Ki Alecha Hiragnu Kol Hayom, that we give up our life daily. Zu Kriya Shema, that one of the kavanos one is required to have lahalacha when they say Shema is that put to the ultimate challenge, they would give up their life al Kiddush Hashem, and when one says Shema, they should actually imagine themselves dying al Kiddush Hashem. Oh, this is a big madrega. Yeah, it's a big madrega for those who follow Shulchan Aruch. It's halacha and Shulchan Aruch. So now we understand what you're sweating about. It's getting a little bit hot during the Kriya Shema when you imagine yourself in a fire giving up al Kiddush Hashem. Now, Rabbi Akiva would imagine so vividly himself dying every day when he said Shema, that Rabbi Akiva daily felt that he was actually giving up his life, Al Kiddush Hashem, every time he said Shema. So Rabbi Akiva his whole life wished that if he would ever have to be put to the ultimate challenge, he wishes it could happen during Kriya Shema. Because he's already used to doing it during Shema, it wouldn't be so difficult for him. But who knows what would happen if he would have to do it at any other time. But one thing Rabbi Akiva knew, that if it would happen during Shema, he would pass the test in his sins very easily, because anyway he was doing it. Kol yomai etztayer mimikra zeh, every day I was in pain when I said this pasuk, vividly imagining and feeling I was giving up my life al Kiddush Hashem. So now that it's happening during the Kriya Shema, how can I not fulfill it? This is the pshat, says Shal Tshuvas Munkatcher Hashem. And this is what we're learning here. Kriya Shema is the yesod of midas ha'ava. Where do we learn that a person has to thank Hashem for the bad the same way he thanks Hashem for the good? From the pasuk, V'ahavta Hashem leikecha. From here we learn that Avas Hashem has nothing to do with, oh, you know why I love Hashem? Because He's going to save me. V'ahavta Hashem leikecha means love God with all your life, even when He's taking your life. So it has nothing to do with God saving you. Love of God has nothing to do with, therefore I hope He'll save me. No, just love God. Don't worry about what will be. It's deveikus, without techila for being saved, without bitachon that you're being saved. This is a very profound concept, but Avas Hashem, I love God because He's going to give me a lot of money, and He's going to give me, no, it has nothing to do with what He's going to do or give you. It's b'chol nafshecha, filu noitel es nafshecha. So says Rav Rabinowitz, during the war, I had equanimity. I had peace of mind, but not out of a false, delusional feeling that God was going to bail me out. I didn't think He was going to bail me out. Why would He bail me out and not bail out my illustrious family and other Gedolei Yisrael? It's just the concept that wherever you go, God is with you. He writes, L'chein kol hazman hirgashnu kirvas Elokim. It's just, I felt closeness to God. V'loi also b'machshavtenu afilu l'rega lo yimer chas v'sholom kilo azavnu. Heaven forbid, I did not think for a moment maybe he forsook us, v'hisrachik mimenu, or He's distanced from us. Even though He wasn't listening to our tefillah, and not one tefillah we said was answered, and our lives were being destroyed on a daily basis. But we always remember the words of King David, Im esak shamayim. If I go up to the heaven, shamata, God, you're there with me. Va'atzia shal, I could go to the netherworld, I could go to the abyss. Hinecha, you're with us. And therefore he continues in Parak Beis. Ezra lanu harbe hagoiseinu b'divrei Chazal b'Megillah. It was very helpful contemplating the words of Chazal in Masechta Megillah. Tanya Rashbi Omer Boy Urei Kama Chavivin Yisrael Lefnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Look how beloved Israel is to God. Shekal Makam Shagalu Golsa Shechina Imahim. Wherever we were exiled, the Shechina was with them. We went to Mitzrayim, the Shechina was with them. We went to Bavel, the Shechina was with them. So this was not based on the idea, well, if the Shechina is with us, He's going to save us. There's nothing to do with that. He is just with us. Says Rabinowitz, page Chafvav, bottom line, Al Yesod Kal Ma'amari Chazal Hanal, based on all of the above words of Chazal. And many similar statements of Chazal that we absorbed from our youth in the house of my father, in the house of my father-in-law, the Munkatcher. We had bitachon. Not that God would save us, but sha'oivades hargashasenu kirvas Elokim misaviv. That we felt that wherever we were, however difficult it was, however torture it was, we felt God is with us. Emunasenu bebehiros maleya shashem imanu b'chal ashar nelech benuya al metzius mamashes. This wasn't just a hashkafa, it wasn't just a thought, it was a feeling of reality. Ve'ena chas v'shalom stam ashla mashalas leif. This was not wishful thinking, this was not a mashal, but he says, we believed, haya imanu b'shasha midenu esanu b'um shlagflats. When we were standing on line for selection or to be deported, we felt God was with us on the cattle cars, choking in convulsion on cattle cars, without air, l'loy lechem, l'loy mayim, in the death camps, crying out, surrounded by children who are tortured, with limbs cut off, parents separated from their children. Gam haya'itam b'shah she'eneim huku kroiveim. Despite the fact that they saw their relatives murdered in front of their eyes, they said Shema with love of God. Love doesn't mean because they thought God would save them. Love just means absolute clinging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what it means, B'chal makom she'Yisrael galu shchina imahem. The last three lines, he says, Kach golsa shchina imanu, gam k'shayinu bein hagoyim, gam k'shayinu skurim beghettos, gam k'shayinu kluim b'machanois. We could have been imprisoned. V'gam berega hanoira v'ha'oyim shel kiddush Hashem. And even at that fateful moment where we gave up our life al kiddush Hashem, b'toich masreifos ha'esh, in the crematoria, never for a moment did many of these Yidden stop clinging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mar Rabbi Say should be zoche to be yatsa b'shalom from Tisha B'Av and move into the next period of the year, period of nechama, period of consolation. Even though the 3 weeks were 3 weeks, the period of nechama is 7 weeks, because Rebbeinu Shem always gives us more consolation than Peranios. So we should be zoche that the Menachem, which was Rachaik Mimenu, should come Karev Lanu and give us the ultimate nechama. B'bias God Tzedek M'her V'Yameinu. Amen. Time is Marav?
47.
Yeah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.